Hey there guys, this is Shawn Levy, the director and producer of Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, the third and final chapter in our Night at the Museum franchise, which I made the first movie, I guess, 8 years ago, and certainly never expected the longevity or popularity that it would end up enjoying. It's kind of been certainly a defining aspect of my career thus far, and over the years I've developed such a loyalty and affection for the characters and the worlds that we've been able to create. So it was several years, 5 years, between the second and the third movie before I felt, and Stiller and I both felt collectively, that we had a story worth telling. And that evolved into the screenplay in this movie. This desert, by the way, Egypt, believe it or not, this is in British Columbia, Canada. A town in an area called Kamloops that actually is desert-like and had this sheer cliff face that echoed research photos we had seen of Egypt. We built all of this set into this kind of mountainside. We created all of this. Martin Wist, who is my production designer on this movie, was so kind of passionate in his belief that we could sell Egypt in Kamloops, British Columbia. I often doubted him and was proven completely and utterly wrong. But like those mountains, that cliff face, that's all real. But everything else you're seeing is built. There's no visual effects in this shot. So all the rest of it is real. And something we tried very hard to do in this movie overall is to kind of combine practical effects and real locations with digital enhancements, and in some cases digital creations from scratch. This here is a set. We built this interior set in our sound stages in Vancouver, Mammoth stages in Vancouver, where we shot all three of the bulk of these museum movies. And I think it's an amazing set, this concept that Martin had of having these huge statues but having them buried in sand up to their kneecaps to show the passage of time and this kind of undiscovered tomb. We also made a choice here. The score is fantastic. It's Alan Silvestri again, but we made a choice in this section to have no music and to just play the amazing kind of eerie soundscape designed by Craig Hennigan, my sound designer on the past, I guess, like 6 movies. I should mention that that opening prologue in Egypt, we went through 5 years of development on this script before we were completely happy with it. But all through that time, that prologue where we would finally see the moment of discovery of the tablet, it never went anywhere. I was completely committed to this this kind of origin story at the opening. This was another this scene was in early drafts and never went anywhere. The idea of kind of, you know, Jed and Octavius, who are the amazing duo of Steve Coogan and Owen Wilson, interacting with contemporary technology was just so funny to me. It was in a draft written by Mark Friedman, who, in another, I guess, anecdote that attests to how this is a relationship business, Mark Friedman and I sat next to each other at orientation on the first day of film school. He wrote my student film like 18 years ago. And years and years later, he came in and did a draft of this script and ends up getting shared story credit. This was one of the scenes that he wrote early, and it never went anywhere. It was always in the scripts, no matter how much the drafts changed. One thing I'll mention, by the way, on Jed and Octavius, it took me 3 movies to finally realize that the magic of these two guys is the chemistry between these two guys. So you'll notice there is not a single close-up of Owen or Coogan in this movie. Every shot of these characters is in a 2-shot, because I finally realized that the comedic kind of magic of them is in their chemistry and is in the twosome in the frame together. So this is obviously Ben Stiller with Ben Stiller, and I think that on this same disc, you should check it out. There's a whole featurette on how we did these scenes with Law. They are so weird because no one will ever realize that they are as complex as anything we did on the entire movie, because there's very few shots that we did the easy way. We move the camera constantly, and there's dozens of shots where you have Ben Stiller interacting with himself in the same frame. And for a deeper dive into how we did that, I strongly recommend the little featurette on this disc. In fact, I'll say this, and whatever, you're already watching the disc, so I don't need to sell it. I'm saying this out of sincerity. The extras on this movie are better than on anyone I've ever seen, not only my own, but any, because there was so many interesting kind of modalities to how we pulled off certain sequences that I was inspired to really kind of give you guys a much broader and more thorough look at the how we did it. So anyway, I do encourage you to check that out, because we put a lot of work into it and really like pulled back the curtain in a unprecedented way. This short-circuiting sequence was unique in that I had Robin Williams, who is a gift to a director, because I was able to say to Robin, I'm gonna just roll the camera. Give me every version of a short-circuiting creature that you can. And as you saw, he did fast motion, he did slow motion, he did Spanish. Later, he does this crazy kind of physical short-circuiting and a maniacal laugh. And, you know, just that riffing, inspired, strange breed of improv that we first saw in Mork and Mindy, and, you know, that Robin did in such an inimitable and special way. I just got to mention, well, there's so many things about this scene that I like. I guess let's just take a look at Ben Stiller imitating kind of himself.
Just go over there. No, go over there.
I'll just tell you briefly, and you'll see this further if you watch the featurette. The way we did the Larry Law scenes is I would play Law, Ben would play Larry. We would film Ben playing Larry, and then Ben would play Law, and we would put television monitors all over the set so that Ben as Law could see Ben as Larry, and then we put them together. But for every Law scene, there is this footage, some of which we've shared, I think, in the featurette, that is mildly humiliating to me, because it shows how every Law scene starts as a Ben Stiller, Shawn Levy scene before Ben replaces my uniquely weird and often terrible performance as the caveman. So in the same way that I made a conscious decision to re-centralize the father-son storyline in this third and last movie, I wanted Cecil, Gus, and Reginald in this movie. That meant Dick Van Dyke, Mickey Rooney, Bill Cobbs. We brought them up to Vancouver for a couple of days. We shot this sequence, and they're not in the movie a lot, but I think they're so additive. And Dick in particular, in this scene and the next scene, there's a real kind of, like a haunting, you know, kind of darkness to some of the moments he plays that I think are fantastic. Mickey Rooney here passed away a few months after we finished filming. It was clear to me that he would not be comfortable doing the scene standing up, so I said, you know what, Mick, play it in the chair. I love the fact that you don't give a crap that you're in a wheelchair. You're still going to try and pick a fight with Ben Stiller. And just so kind of a lovely guy, and he's been in like 100+ movies, and he's a legend, and he still came to work with such gratitude, with such a kind of joyous appreciation of the job he gets to do. And as a result, it was a really good reminder to all of us of the job we get to do. And I'm grateful for that. This scene here, this is a set, by the way, a beautifully built set in Vancouver. And there's a longer version of this scene on this disc that you should check out, because the reality is, like every Ben Stiller, Ricky Gervais scene, if it should take 4 hours to film it, I give us 8 hours, because I know that they're going to improvise like maniacs, and some of it's going to be just weird and unusable, but a lot of it is going to be amazing. Plus, Ricky in particular loves to laugh, and if Ben Stiller does something funny, Ricky Gervais is going to laugh. So sometimes it takes 6-7 takes, and I budget that presumption into the time I put aside to shoot a scene. This scene is, a lot of it was written by Guillaume and Handelman, who, you know, got screenplay credit on this movie and did an amazing job. Guillaume and Handelman, working off characters created by Lennon and Grant, who wrote the first 2 movies, they really brought all kinds of new ideas. Guillaume and Handelman did into this movie. They created Lancelot, they created Law, many other things. This scene is very funny. It is even more funny, but just way longer in an extended version that I believe you can find on this desk. Here we have Rebel Wilson. Rebel was my first and only idea for Tilly. I knew one of my personal favorite scenes in the whole franchise is the Brundon scene from Night at the Museum 2, where Jonah Hill with Ben Stiller took a page-long scene and turned it into an 8-page improv clinic. And I knew I wanted a similarly weird, young, kind of off-kilter energy in this role of Tilly, which would be a much bigger role than the Brundon role was. So I had seen Rebel's work in one of Judd Apatow's movies, and then, you know, a lot in Pitch Perfect, because I have 4 daughters, 2 of whom are teenagers, so Pitch Perfect is like on a loop in my house. And so I was a Rebel fan. I asked her if she wanted to have breakfast. I pitched her the role. She had ideas about it. We sunk up and really kind of had a really good sense of what we could build in this character. And indeed, she was amazing, not only super sweet, but just an amazing improviser. And Ben is one of the best there is, so the two of them really mixed it up in this scene and all their scenes. Dan Stevens was a revelation. To be honest, I've never seen Downton Abbey. We had a lot of famous people wanting to play Lancelot, kind of like big, namey, you know, movie star types. And Dan Stevens was on the list, and he came in the audition. I had no idea who he was, other than he was some guy from a show I hadn't seen that I knew was famous called Downton Abbey. And I knew that a lot of women loved him. He gave such a good audition. I immediately brought him back in, and he auditioned with Ben Stiller. And he literally, it was just one of those auditions which was so fully realized and so thorough, he got the part in the room. And the idea of what he does here, and by the way, it starts in the writing. Guillaume and Handelman's notion that Lancelot would have known a jester, a fool named Eric, who is so much like Ben Stiller. Now, him doing a Ben Stiller imitation to Ben Stiller.
Sort of thing. Just like Eric. Sounds like a great game.
Anyway, it's definitely an inside-y joke, but what we always try and do in these movies is, yes, there's some broad physical stuff that, you know, your kids and my kids and kids in general are going to like, but there's also jokes like that, like Dan Stevens as Lancelot doing a Ben Stiller imitation, or Ben earlier in the movie, you know, telling Attila why was he hacking into a dolphin like it was the Cove. Jokes that literally maybe 5% of the audience is going to be in on those jokes, but it's something that's frankly always been important to us in these films, these museum films, is to give those multiple levels of humor, and not every joke has to be for everybody. And in fact, I think the popularity of this franchise has been partly based on the fact that there are those different layers, and the things that my kids laugh at are different than the things my wife laughs at, and that's fine, as long as someone, you know, there's something for everyone. This leads us into a sequence that really became a centerpiece of the movie, and also, frankly, a centerpiece of the marketing for the movie, which is this Pompeii sequence, which I just love as an idea. The idea of Jed and Octavius trapped in Pompeii when Vesuvius erupts. And it was always, when we worked on the script, and once we landed on this Pompeii idea, we had a sense of how funny it could be, but the ideas kind of accumulated on top of themselves. So first it was Pompeii, then it was the idea of mispronouncing it because Octavius is reading it upside down as Yetmop. And then it was Ben Stiller who, when I showed him an early cut of the movie, he said, you know, it might be funnier if he's reading upside down, it looks like a W. And so that became Yetwop. And just an example there, one of many, of how kind of iterative the process is in terms of ending up with the joke that the audience ultimately sees. I have to mention this is the fun part, one of the fun parts of this franchise. So when I was visiting the British Museum, I was walking from one gallery to another, and I saw this little guy, this Garuda, and he's on display in the British Museum, and he wasn't in the script. And I saw him behind glass, and I took a picture of him with my phone, just because he struck me as such a mischievous, impish, interesting-looking character. And I came back to my prep meetings, and I said, I don't know what this is, but we're bringing him to life. And indeed, we did, and he's a Tibetan figure called a Garuda, and when Robin Williams saw the Garuda, in an early version on my laptop screen, Robin said, "Hey boss, can I take a whack at giving him a voice?" And so the voice you hear as the Garuda is Robin Williams as the Garuda. Coming up, we have the introduction of Sir Ben Kingsley as Aquamaral's father. And a lot of people have commented and taken note, rightfully, of the casting over the course of these three movies. We've really tried very, very hard to be voracious. I've tried to be voracious in my kind of aspiration for the casting of this franchise. I never approached it as a family film, obviously it is, but I wanted great actors in every role. And it's how we've ended up with, even in the supporting roles, people like Amy Adams and Jonah Hill and Christopher Guest and Bill Hader, and in this movie, Sir Ben Kingsley and Rebel and Dan Stevens. Sir Ben came in for a handful of days, and we needed someone to play this pharaoh with gravitas and a certain willingness to be silly, and Sir Ben came in with both sides of that coin.
We would be very honored if you could take a look at the tablet or something.
This riff coming up, it was written by Gillen Handelman. This idea of I'm half Irish, half Jewish, and the kind of Pharaoh's response to hearing that, and oh, we owned 40,000 Jews. It was in the script, and it read super funny, but it is an edgy joke to say the least, and it is a shockingly edgy joke within a family film franchise like this. And yet, I have seen this movie play in conservative neighborhoods, in very kind of diverse liberal neighborhoods. This joke run here plays big everywhere.
40,000 of them.
Such lovely people.
Here we go. They were very happy, always singing with the candles.
Yeah, they really weren't happy.
Really?
No, they left. They spent about 40 years in the desert trying to escape.
No.
Yeah, we have dinner once a year and talk about it. It's a big deal for us. Listen, could you take...
Again, part of the fun for me is bringing to life this kind of big tapestry, visually big adventure film, but that within that, we can also make room for unexpected and edgier and more adult-toned, dialogue-driven humor. It's been very, very fun to get to operate on those different levels.
Father, why do you insist on...
I really enjoyed this flashback sequence coming up. For the same reason that any filmmaker loves doing diverse things. I've tried to mix it up on the directing front as far as, night at museums, Real Steel, Date Night, This Is Where I Leave You, but even here, to get to do this kind of exotic flashback sequence as Sir Ben Kingsley tells this story, with, frankly, the outstanding support of Martin Wisk's production design and Guillermo Navarro, who shot the first Night at Museum and who I'm so thrilled I reunited with him on this third one. Obviously, Guillermo is Del Toro's DP and won the Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth, and so getting into this darker, moodier stuff that did not need to play comedically, so it could play visually more exotically and a little more edgily in the lighting, was a great treat for me. And I had a team who really were brilliant at bringing these things to life. But to design these shots and design the mood of these within something that is otherwise thought of as a kind of happy family comedy, this was very fun and a treat for me. This sequence, there's a whole featurette on this, guys, the MC Escher gallery and the plunge into the world of this lithograph. It would fill up the rest of this movie commentary for me to explain it in detail here, but suffice it to say, this sequence was by far the most complicated sequence in the movie. It's the most complicated sequence in any movie I've ever directed, because it's a work of art with three distinct but simultaneous planes of gravity. So figuring out how to shoot that with real actors, those are not digital doubles, those are real actors in every shot. Figuring out a shot like that where you have actors in multiple gravity planes at the same time was incredibly complex. And to my astonishment, the featurette on this disc actually makes it coherently understandable in a way that, again, if you're a student of this stuff or simply interested, I think you'll love it. coming up, you're going to see this sequence in the break room where you have Ben Stiller opposite Ben Stiller. This scene here, Ben and I went into this break room set and we just rehearsed it, him and me. And he would play Larry and I would play Law, and then we'd switch. And we developed this blocking together. No one else was there. And we developed the blocking of this scene. And we brought in my editor and my cinematographer and my production designer to watch it once we had blocked it. And they were sitting right there where you are, where the camera is. And we acted it out like a piece of live theater. And they reacted so strongly to the comedy of it. It's why I shot most of the scene in this single shot as if it is proscenium based, because I think there's a great fun in seeing the simultaneity of Ben as Law copycatting Larry as, excuse me, see, this is, by the way, a good example of how confusing it is, copycatting Ben as Larry. So it's why I let the scene play predominantly in a single master two shot, because in blocking it and showing the blocking to the crew, I realized, oh, it's actually funniest seeing the two of them at once. This scene was scripted much in the same way that you're watching it. This script went through many rewrites over many years, but this scene, all the way up to the last line that Robin Williams says, I never allowed it to be touched. It always felt like the way to end, and the final farewell. I've compared it to the Dorothy Scarecrow farewell because something about this felt like it would be the most hard, the most special. And indeed, I think these two men give beautiful, emotional, sincere performances.
How exciting.
Fine, take.
Farewell, Lawrence. Buddy, pal! Got you! Smile, my boy. Sunrise.
Yeah, it's an obviously ambivalent experience for me watching that scene. I love that scene. I knew I would love it when the guys and I were filming it. I would love to watch that scene with Robin, man, because it's such a beautiful performance, and it captures so beautifully the humanity that comes through that guy's eyes. So anyway, I'm sad that it ended up being a real farewell for Robin, but very proud to contribute at least this small piece to a legacy of work that will outlive all of us. Here we have what I guess has become a bit of my tradition, which is a 70s disco classic to end in a museum movie. It's been Earth, Wind & Fire in the prior to. Here it's Cheryl Lynn's classic, To Be Real, which felt fitting, not only because it's just a straight up awesome song, but lyrically it seemed fitting in a scene that's about McPhee witnessing that indeed the magic is real. And, you know, this was just a blast. I played the music loud, I had everyone dance, and to get to film this sequence and to kind of leave the franchise on this celebratory note felt really good. And I like the fact that we're seeing Teddy Roosevelt and Sacagawea and all the rest of them living beyond the franchise into a kind of untold and, you know, infinite possibility and future. There were scripted dialogue jokes here, but in the end I decided that Dan Stevens dancing badly as Lancelot was the funniest way to go. Now this whole kind of end credit sequence, when I was filming that dance party, I just let the camera run and I would scream out to the actors to just dance. And I didn't know how I would use it or if I would use it, but as you can see, I ended up building a end credit sequence, and thank God all my actors indulged me with my half-baked notion of them randomly dancing, because I think that in concert with this terrific song and just kind of the energy of the franchise, we never made these movies to change the world. They are obviously populist, hopefully entertaining films. The fact that they've resulted in actual increases in museum attendance has been an incredible and unexpected reward for having made them, but it just felt like an organic way to end this. I love, like, even Owen and Coogan, who were on this weird green screen moving turntable, got into it. And at the end of this, I'll just kind of, you've likely seen this at the end, but it felt appropriate that after the kind of festive feeling of all this, that we just make one final nod to the two actors who were a huge part of this franchise and who have left us too soon, Mickey Rooney, and then ultimately Robin, who, as you'll see, I wasn't comfortable simply remembering him, but I felt that this theme of the movie, of the fact that that there isn't an end to magic, and that applies to Robin's work as well. I wanted to say that, and that's why I said that right there. So, guys, I thank you for listening. Hopefully it has been fun and mildly enlightening, and it's always kind of an interesting process revisiting the movie and telling some of the behind-the-scenes stories that went into the making of it. So thanks for listening. Bye-bye.